Hello, everyone. Luke Flywalker here. Welcome to episode 1 of SL Aviation Network's new podcast series. We will feature guests and discuss some topics of interest to aviation enthusiasts and virtual travelers. We'll also discuss new builds and aviation-related events, but our shows will not be limited to just that. After all, we're in Second Life, where anything is possible. Our first episode will be pre-recorded, but future episodes will be streamed live on our YouTube channel and MTFB radio. On the podcast today, we have AW. AW is an aircraft vehicle builder and scripter. He is on the show to discuss his latest release, the Donier DO-28, which he built in partnership with Mickey Woodget. We recently completed the SLAN Intercontinental Grid Flight Challenge in the DO-28. I'll be showing some clips of that flight throughout the show today, and hopefully we'll get a sneak peek at some of AW's new products. Now, let's get on with the show. We're here with AW on the SL Aviation Network podcast, and we're going to ask him some questions about his building and flying and all kinds of cool stuff. So, AW, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, and thanks for having me. It's great to be here. It's kind of like the Tonight Show. I feel like I ought to be listening to Tonight Show music.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll put some of that in when I edit it. I really haven't come up with a theme for this new format that I'm going to experiment with. But I have some questions for you here, and we can sit here and talk a while, and then maybe we'll go out in the tarmac and you can show us some of your planes.
Well, that sounds good.
That's okay. Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in SL and your interest, and just some general facts.
Well, general facts. My first avatar, what is currently now my alt, is 10 years old. So that I consider that the first iteration of my Second Life, and I didn't really do too much back then. So it didn't go anywhere, and then there was a long hiatus. I came back about 4 years ago with this new account, which is now my principal account. The other one is just an alt. And I got more serious. I got the premium, so I started to actually spend money and put that into it. I primarily came into Second Life so that I could be closer with my partner, who is distant. We don't get to be in the same place more than about 3 or 4 times a year. So I wanted us to have a place virtually where we could sort of enhance that experience of living remotely, but also some degree of togetherness. And it's been very helpful for that. And then it blossomed out of there. My experience in Second Life went beyond just the usual teleporting to places and having a little house and stuff like that. And one of the first things I discovered was that there were roads and that there are cars and that you could actually drive on them. And then the next thing I saw was that there were boats and there were oceans. And of course, one thing led to another. Not too much longer after discovering boats, I discovered that there were ships that were used for combat, and that was interesting to me. And so as I got involved with that, that's what led to the aviation.
That's awesome. So let's get back to aviation. You said a little bit about it, how you got involved with it through your interest in flight simulator, then getting back here. Of course, SL is not a flight simulator, but it's pretty amazing what scripters have done with our flying here. And, I think there's always an effort to make it as realistic as possible as the Second Life script will allow us to. But can you talk a little bit about that, more about your involvement with SL Aviation and the activities you do and things like that?
Well, it started out as a primarily as a pilot. Uh, I've never been much of a combat pilot, but that was how I got started into it. So that then led to discovering the GTFO was a big thing, and I started finding planes that would allow me to carry loads for GTFO, and that was a little more interesting um, because I'm much more attracted to civilian aviation and kind of trick flying as opposed to combat flying. Only more recently did I start to transition into creation, where because of also the other aspect of my background is I was raised by two old school computer programmers. So I since I was a baby, I've been around computers, which is, for someone of my age, that's unusual. Most of the
Yeah.
time, it's much younger people that have had that experience.
Hmm.
And so they taught me to program in BASIC when I was a little kid. And that's another thing that I just sort of didn't really care about, and I went into the arts and all that. Only more recently did I start to get serious about programming, and I chose LSL to focus on. And the most rewarding thing is that now, instead of doing things in Flight Simulator where I'm just buying a product and then flying it, now I get to create, which is what I really love to do. I get to make the stuff go the way I want it to go. I have a thing called Motion Pro, which is great. It enables you to just basically make a prim box, and you can apply to it various vehicle parameters
Hmm.
on the fly. So while you're driving the vehicle, you can change the vehicle parameters. And that's how I figured out how to simulate all the various modes of vehicles, whether they be boats or ships or planes in the air or planes on the ground or cars or whatever. And then I acquired the last iteration of QB Terra's script that he made public. He called it like QB's Last Challenge or something like that. And that was what indicated to me that there was a way of making scripts work dynamically so that you could simulate how lift is different depending on what your attitude and depending on your airspeed and all of that stuff. And also how to integrate the ground mode versus flight mode and things like that. And just one thing led to another, and then it turned into my own scripts. I wasn't really copying anyone. I'm just sort of making my own. But I have to admit that I really have stood on the shoulders of a lot of people in terms of scripting. Probably the most notable would be Aries Viper, who is just the most generous of sharing scripts. Also, Buzzbox Monroe has been very helpful, and um, those two stand out more than anyone in terms of scripting and understanding how Second Life scripting applies to flight dynamics and stuff like that. So that plus the QB Terra script has really been the three pillars that I've stood on in order to create my own.
Yeah, that's really good. And it's, just like real life, no, nobody or very few people totally invent something that's never been thought of before. Everybody builds on what somebody else has done. So, that's good that we have a place and that you found people to share and help you.
Well, as a professional artist, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is no such thing as a completely original work. Everyone stands on the shoulders of everyone else. No matter how much you think you made it yourself, it's just not possible. And it all comes
Yeah.
down to who you're stealing from.
So you mentioned GTFO, and I saw the change because when I first got started in flying, it was more. It was basically the thing that was driving most of the interest was the combat, and I was in the Flying Tigers, and of course that became a really big group, and we had our own combat sims and all that, and so a lot of the development of aircraft and building of aircraft was for combat. And then, people started doing more of the grid traveling and grid flying. And a lot of builders switched to, commercial or private aviation type planes.
So you know that's kind of cool that that happened. But GTF, because you'd fly, okay, so you could fly from one place to another, so big deal. I did it. But now you got GTFO, and that gives you a reason to go from point A to point B. And then, of course, drivers of SL has really, energized that grid traveling, not just in planes, but boats and cars and spaceships and bicycles and horses and everything else. So, uh, and I think it's changed a lot of what Linden Labs have done. If you look at Belissaria, and they have all the roads in there and their airports and things like that. Uh, so let's shift here a little bit and talk about your business. And I know you're in business with Mickey, and do you want to kind of explain that a little bit and how all that works?
Well, Mickey is the owner of the business. It has several names. His um, marketplace is called Mickey Woodget Creations, and then the location, the place where you can go and demo these things, is called Pinewood Tank Factory, or PTF. And I have an arrangement where I will script his vehicles. So essentially, he creates the mesh, the prims, the texturing, essentially all the visual representations of the objects. And he has been doing that for a really long time. I think it's 17 years or something. Really very experienced creator, but has no interest in scripting. And so it works out very well because I, to be honest, don't have all that much interest in the visual creation. Um,
Hmm.
you know, I like I said, I've been in the arts a long time, and I'm not adverse to uh, different forms of art. In fact, I love art. I have paintings at my house and stuff. I go to art museums, but there's only so much room I've got for learning new things, and people want to convince me that I need to create everything in Blender and all that stuff, and I'm full right now. I just don't have I don't really have the space to try to master another very difficult and arcane process with creation in Blender. And so it works out much better when I can get into a partnership where one of us makes the object and the other one of us makes it work. Because I prefer the making it work part.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the flight challenge that we just completed this past week, and I want to get your thoughts on that. Why did you decide to do it? How much preparation did you put into it? And after going through the whole thing, what's your thoughts and about the experience? And you got any recommendations for anyone who might be considering doing the challenge?
Well, the experiences that I've had prior to the flight challenge are somewhat similar to the flight challenge because uh, during a particular phase of my Second Life existence, I was doing a lot of long distance cargo runs. And as soon as it became possible to easily travel, although not quickly, easily travel from one side of the grid to the other by going through Belissaria, I was doing that both with vessels and with aircraft. It was never entirely easy, but they've made it a lot easier now. And I always thought of doing something like flying the entire grid. And so when I saw that such a thing existed as a challenge, it became interesting right away. Then when Mickey made the Dornier, I had been doing nothing but combat aircraft, and I was getting burnt out because weapons are. I'm pretty good with making them, but they do take. I find them very frustrating to work with, and after a while, I want to do something that I find more relaxing, and I find civilian aviation a lot more relaxing. So when I when I scripted the Dornier, I realized this thing is going to be great for doing just all sorts of cargo runs and passenger runs. And it's just so comfortable because it's just the right speed for second life. It crosses well and it lands really well too. And so the first thing I thought of is this is a perfect plane for the challenge. And so I went and did it myself all alone. And it passed with flying colors the first time. This is before we actually did the official challenge. Made it all the way through all of the legs, got all the way to one sim before the final, and then it crashed out in the sim. But I thought that was pretty good for the very first time. Um, and so that's really what got me interested in why I wanted to use this specific aircraft also. I felt like if people knew how good it was at doing something like that, well, they'd be interested in buying the airplane. Uh, so to answer I think that's maybe the last part of your question. In what tips do I have? Um, well, the first tip that I have is if you see my avatar here, this avatar is just about too complex to do it. I know we used this avatar when we did it, and it was just about too complex. So I would either go invisible avatar or just a really super simple avatar with no AO and no HUDs and nothing. That would be the first thing. The second thing would be, fly at an appropriate altitude where you're not really going to get a lot of texture loading coming in. That'll make things infinitely easier. Uh, and have a plan, have a flight plan that you have gone over with a fine-tooth comb so that you know where the gnarly places are. There's always going to be gnarly places where you're going to have to basically try to squeeze into various parcels and out of certain parcels and trying to avoid band lines and things like that. And you know where those sections are. In fact, there are not that many sections when you consider the entire challenge that are that way, but the ones that are that way are the ones that are memorable, and you know that that's where it's going to happen. So make a note of it. That this is where you're going to have to possibly throw away the plan and start reacting to what's going on around you. And the other thing that I would recommend, and I think if you show video of our actual challenge, is don't just come in straight to the runway unless you have to. Come in and do a little recon pass and just see what it's like, because you might not actually the runways might not res for you the first pass, but they probably will in a second. And I like to do that anyway, because if somebody's taking off and you don't know, they might take off right into your nose. And so I like to fly a pattern. That's what you do in real life anyway. You don't just come straight in. If it's a VFR and it's an uncontrolled airport, you really have to go over the top of it and circle around and announce your intentions and do all that stuff, and just to be safe. If you just come straight in, you're always running the risk that you're going to have a collision. So that, and use an aircraft that is going to be a good speed for second life. That means not too quick, and that crosses really well. Something where the scripting is trying to cut down a little bit on the script time. You can see script time, and it's one of the pie menus will show you script time, and every time you go into a new sim, the script time goes up because it all loads again. But then after about 5 seconds or something, it's going to get down to its quiescent state, and that's what you want to see. What's the quiescent state of script time for this aircraft?
So I tell you what, let's take a little break here and go down on the tarmac, and you can res out the Dornier and any other plane that you want to tell us about.
Great.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, let's do that.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. So I'll res the Dornier. It has 3 variants that ship with it. Let me make sure I have the right one here. So this is the standard one, and the Dornier is a military cargo plane or a military transit or transport. So this is the standard livery, and it's got how many seats back here? I've got 6 in the back, plus co-pilot, plus pilot. So that's the standard one. Lights, and then individual control of the left engine and the right engine.
So you asked me, I didn't kill one of the engines when I was flying, but that makes the plane drop, doesn't it? Yeah. Or slows it down. When you kill one of the engines while you're flying.
Yes. So I'm not sure that there are any other planes that do this, but you can do one engine out operations with this plane. So if you want to try to take off with only one engine, you can do it, but you're going to need the whole runway, and it's interesting for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But when you got 2 motors, it just jumps right up in the air, no problem. Very easy to fly.
Okay, let me. I got my sounds turned down here, so I wouldn't pick up all the background stuff while we were talking. But I'm going to turn my sounds back up so people can hear.
You want to hear the engine?
Yeah, because that is a cool feature. Cool feature of the. There we go.
What I did with this twin is I used different file samples for both sides, and so it means you get a nice stereo effect when you're in the cockpit. Now, if I just put my brakes on, I can take you through the various stages. Now, in real life, you probably want to do a run-up anyway, but I do them just to load the sounds. Whether that's full throttle.
Cool. That really does sound good. Yeah. Go ahead.
Different. And this is my preferred livery.
It's a pretty plane. It's really nice.
It's mod, so if you want to change it, you can change pretty much anything you like, although you have to be careful when you're adding stuff or taking stuff out of the link set, of course. We have there's a moving GPS map which is on by default, and I've put in a way that you can disable that script, so it's a good idea to disable it if you're going to do a link set edit.
Yeah, I see. So has anybody made any custom liveries for it available yet?
Well, if they have, I haven't seen them.
Okay. I haven't looked either, but I'm sure they will.
So this was just released, I think yesterday. This is a Eurofighter. And this is a beautiful plane.
Boy, it is.
So here's the engine sound on this one. Let's put my brakes on so you can see the full afterburner effect. But you can also go slow.
Let's see here. Get under it. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. I have to wait for them to load. But there they go. We just took a little fire from our own bombs. And then the other, there's actually 6 sidewinders on this thing. It's the most of any plane I've ever done. They won't fire unless you have a target. So. You gotta lock them before you fire. Yeah, this thing is just a truck of destruction.
Yeah,
it flies
really.
real nice too. It's supersonic and very maneuverable. Civilian experience, and this is the Pilatus PC-7. There aren't very many of these, as far as I know, in Second Life. So this one, I just got the sounds in yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago. So this is the coming attraction, and I'm rather proud of the sounds I got in this one. So, oh, there we are. It's got all the different cockpit lights, and it does have, just like the Dornier, it has a co-pilot mode, so that you can actually say CP, and then the co-pilot can take control of the aircraft. So with this one, you can do the same thing. Flies pretty much like a warbird, like a prop fighter, but it's a little more forgiving, so you can fly at lower speeds. But otherwise, it's going to maintain attitude. It doesn't just auto level itself. It's going to fly like a fighter, so it will maintain attitude. If you want to fly on the side, you can fly on the side. If you want to fly upside down, you can fly upside down. It'll do barrel rolls, loops, hammerheads, pretty much any kind of acrobatic flight.
I was gonna say it might be.
Go ahead.
It might be a good plane for an aerobatic team to use.
So.
I think so. That's cool.
It also has easy mode, which I use for landing, which does auto level, and it gets a little more gentle in terms of the turning and stuff like that. So you just want to relax and kind of use my landing. I use that all the time. I put in all my fighters everything.
I'd enjoy keeping this up. I enjoy having if you'd be willing to consider it a partner with some of these and, talk about some other subjects or topics,
sure,
related to Second Life aviation or traveling,
Okay, folks, that's the end of SL Aviation Network podcast, episode 1. And we do thank AW for the awesome interview and showing us his planes and going on the flight there with the flight challenge. If you're interested in doing that, just IM me at Luke Flywalker Fittinger, and I'll be happy to get you set up for a flight. AW is going to be joining us for some more episodes here in the future as we get time to film some more. And also, I'm going to put a music video up of his flight there and show you some of the features of it. It'll be over on the Flight School 101 playlist, so you can check it out and you might pick up some tips for doing the flight challenge. So that's it for this episode, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching.